Hello, friends. I welcome you all to another interesting and important topic on the financial markets. In this video, we are going to cover on the topic of primary market and the secondary market. Before we go into our topic, we'll briefly discuss on the financial markets in India. In India, financial markets are broadly classified into two types: money market and the secondary market. In this video, we are going to cover on the securities market where primary and secondary markets are included. If we see the broad categorization of financial markets in India, financial markets are broadly classified into two types as money market and securities market. In the money market, markets are again broadly classified into two categories. One is organized money market and second one is unorganized money market. So in the secondary market, in the securities market, markets are broadly classified into two types as primary market and secondary market. So today our topic is on the primary market and secondary market, which are part of securities market. So we will see briefly on both primary and secondary market overview now, and in detail we will discuss again. So what do they mean? What is meant by primary market and secondary market? Is there any difference between the two markets, or whether we can whether both the markets work on the same manner, or can we do trading in both the markets? We will see in detail on this. So first we will discuss overview of both the markets. If you see, the primary market is the market where securities are created, while in the secondary market is the place where securities are traded by the investors. And in the primary market, companies sell new stocks and bonds to the public for the first time, such as in the form of initial public offering. Whereas the secondary market is basically the stock market and refers to the National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange, which is NSE and BSE, the two major stock exchanges in India. Likewise, we have New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq in the USA, and we have other stock exchanges of the world as well. Now we will see in detail of the primary market. The primary market is where securities are created, which means at first securities are created in the primary market itself. In this market, the company issues new shares and bonds to the public for the very first time in the form of IPO. An initial public offering or an IPO is an typical example of primary market. So this is the first opportunity that investors have to contribute capital to a company through the purchase of its stock. And by purchasing the stock, investors are going to contribute capital to the company, which is going to list in the primary market. And the important thing to understand about the primary market is that the securities are directly purchased from the issuer or from the company. That's what in primary market. And we will see, so this is the brief explanation of primary market. And if we see about the secondary market, in the secondary market, previously issued stocks or bonds in the primary market are bought and sold. So in the primary market we discussed, right, securities are created for the first time. So the securities which are already created for the first time in the primary market, those securities are traded in the secondary market. So in other words, buying and selling of securities and bonds or takes place in the secondary market. So even in the secondary market, price of stocks or depends on the concept of demand and supply. And here in the primary market, companies tries to influence the stock prices in the stock market through various forms of corporate actions like buyback of securities, stock split, and many more. By having all the corporate actions, the company's share price may influence, which means may keep on moving up and down because of the current corporate action. And the share price of a company in the secondary market decides the market value of a company, so which means it is also called as market capitalization. So market capitalization can be derived by multiplying total outstanding shares that are traded in the market into that particular share's current price or its market price. So here in the secondary market, all the securities which are already created in the primary market will be traded. So now we will see the difference between the primary market and the secondary market. So the meaning, if we see the meaning, a platform that offers security for the very first time in the primary market as discussed. Whereas in the secondary market, the securities which are already issued will be traded in the secondary market. So another name of primary market is new issuers market. For secondary market also there is another name, which is aftermarket or share market, which we all knows. And if we see the type of products which are traded in primary market, mostly like in the form of IPO, that is initial public offering, and FPO, follow on public offering, or another products also available such as private placement, or in order to raise funds company also go for rights distribution. This is about primary market, products of primary market. But whereas in the secondary market, many products are available such as shares, warrants, derivatives, and many more. And when it comes to primary market, all the purchases in this market happen directly, which means there is no involve of any other mediator. Directly shares will be purchased from the company. Whereas in the secondary market, the issuer or the company is not at all involved in the trading. And the frequency of selling, if we see, securities can be sold to the investor only once in the primary market, but whereas in the secondary market, keep on daily, depends on the market working day, keep on trading between the buyers and sellers. And in the primary market, if we see the parties who are involved in the primary market, only two parties are involved, that is company, that is the issuer, and the investors. Whereas in the secondary market, lot of investors are involved who daily keep on buying and selling of securities among themselves. In the primary market, the one and only beneficiary is the company who is issuing the shares. Whereas in the secondary market, the beneficiaries are the investors. And how do we identify whether the investment is a best opportunity or not with regards to primary market means, usually whenever a company comes into public in the form of IPO or FPO, they will come with a document called prospectus. In this prospectus, the company will explain about its future plans and the amount of targeted amount the company is expecting to raise from the initial public offer, and its business plan. It's all are explained in the initial public offering in the form of prospectus document. So in order to identify whether to invest in the primary market or not, we need to go through the prospectus which will be issued by the company at the time of IPO or FPO. But whereas in the secondary market, how we come to know whether to invest in this company or whether the company is performing or not, we'll come to know by going through few ratios such as price to earnings ratio, or price to book value ratio or price to sales ratios and many other fundamental analysis and technical analysis, we can come to know whether the security is according to our expectations or not in terms of a risk and a reward ratio. And in the primary market, the intermediaries, if we see, only the investment bankers, those are underwriters, will be there between the company and the investor. But whereas in the secondary market, the intermediaries are the brokers. Typically only brokers are involved between buying and selling in the secondary market. So what is the main purpose of primary market? Here the main purpose, if you see, in the primary market, this will help the new companies or the existing companies to raise capital for starting their business or to expand their business and to diversify their business. But whereas the purpose of secondary market does not provide any funding to companies, rather this will help only investors to make money. And when it comes to price, in the primary market, the company sells shares to investors at a fixed price. The company itself sells the shares to the investors directly at a fixed price. But whereas in the secondary market, both buy and sell happens between the investors. Here, nowhere involved by the issuer or the company. And when it comes to presence of the primary market, there is no organization or setup for the primary market as a physical place. But whereas for the secondary market, there is a geographical setup and organizational presence for the secondary market, which is called stock markets. And when it comes to rules and regulations, with regards to primary market, the company issuing securities goes through lot of regulations and due diligence processes involved while going into the IPO or in the form of public. Whereas in the secondary market, here investors and brokers need to follow the rules that are set by the stock exchanges and the grievance agency. So altogether, both primary market and secondary market has to be in line with the rules and regulations of the regulatory bodies, stock exchange regulatory body in India, that is SEBI. The securities all has to trade with the expectations of SEBI. Now we will conclude the topic of primary market and secondary market. If we see, in the development of any country's economy or in any country's economic growth, both primary and secondary market plays a crucial role, and investors can benefit from both the markets. However, both come with their own inheritance risk, which means there are a lot of risk involved in both primary market and the secondary market. So the investors, whenever they are in the plan of investing, they should know or they must know clearly about both the markets in detail. They want to know the difference between both the markets, primary market and secondary market, in detail to make benefit of both the markets. So likewise, we can have lot of benefits from both primary market and the secondary market. So this is about our current video, friends. In today's video, we have covered on the topics of both primary market and secondary market, and we also clear on all the aspects of what exactly they mean and what are the difference between two markets, and whether both markets work or in the same manner, or can we do trading in both the markets. So for all these questions we have seen in this video. So finally, this is about this video, friends. So if you have any questions, please you can post in the comment box section, and happy to answer on all those things. And thank you so much for your time and your attention. Thank you.